good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Barnett. I'm SVP of Sales for Pegasus Technology Solutions, and I'll be your host this morning. And on behalf of Pegasus and our awesome partner, HPE, I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's coffee break. Unfortunately, you had to listen to a discussion about the coffee we're drinking. I hope everybody's enjoying a nice cup of coffee here at the mid-morning. Today's discussion is going to be around hybrid cloud. First, a few housekeeping items. There is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You can ask any questions here and we'll get them to them at the end of the presentation. We are going to have a few polling questions throughout, which Hannah will post up. As those come across, I think we're going to answer them one at a time. I think they'll all come up, but we'll answer them one at a time. We'll tell you which ones to answer. And then we're going to start with an introduction of Pegasus and how we help companies build, manage, secure, govern, optimize hybrid cloud environments. And then we'll get to HPE and Joe Vidal, and he will talk about hybrid cloud solutions and how HPE is helping IT put IT back in the control of the business. So we'll start with Pegasus. So Pegasus, I know some of you already know who we are. I think that we have a few on here that aren't aware. Pegasus is a technology solutions provider. We're headquartered in Frisco, Texas. And our mission, if you jump on our website, you'll see we really value relationships. And you'll see our mission statement is, we value people and emphasize relationships while solving business challenges through technology. And really the relationship is super important to us because we know if we do a good job there, we're going to learn a lot about who you are and what your challenges are and what your business challenges you're facing are and how we can put solutions together to help you solve those. And that's what we do. And one of the challenges facing companies today is, hey, where do we put our workloads? I mean, it used to be pretty simple. You'd go put infrastructure together, you'd put it in a data center, either on-prem or in a co-location facility, and you'd manage and operate that. And then public cloud comes along and it really complicates things. And if I do want to put workloads in the public cloud, I've got all kinds of concerns around compliance and governance, security challenges, all these things we might face. And then on top of that, how do I manage it all? If I've got some workloads in the cloud, some on-prem, I've now got a hybrid environment. And that's what we're talking about today. And it's definitely not easy to manage those environments. Very, very difficult. And not only do you have those challenges, but you also need to figure out where do I put it? Where do I put my workloads from a cost perspective, performance perspective? It's all very, very difficult. Now, all this Pegasus can help with today. And we utilize the best tools and products from HP to do all of this. Pretty much just about every company we do business with today has HPE as part of the solution that we've provided to them. And as I mentioned, we help companies plan, then build, then secure, then govern, and then optimize and manage everything within hybrid cloud environments and try to make it as simple as possible for you. So as I mentioned, HPE, we have one of our top partners, HPE, with us today. Today, Pegasus still utilizes HP solutions across all of our customers. And with us is Joe Vidal, who is Chief Technologist with North American Channels for HPE. And he'll talk about HPE Hybrid Cloud Solutions. All right, Joe, it's all yours.
All right, thank you very much. Give me just a second to share my screen.
Okay.
And let me know when you folks can see that.
All right, we got it, Joe. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thanks for the opportunity today to talk about what Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is doing in the hybrid and multi-cloud space, because right now that the cloud is certainly taken off, right? And whether you're dealing with Cumulus or Cirrus clouds in your neck of the woods, or private, public, hybrid, and multi, we're going to talk about all of those things, although we really won't talk too much about the Cirrus and the Cumulus. We want to stay in bright, sunny days. But bottom line is that you have to deal with everything with security top of mind. And, in the 30 plus years that I've been working with Hewlett-Packard, Compaq, and now Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, the industry is constantly changing, which keeps it exciting for us. The key here is that we're using these technologies to really help IT get back or take back control of the business. Now, I'm going to talk about a few things that we're doing right now to help, we're going to say solve the COVID-19 pandemic or map the 44 enzymes that are defined. I'm going to talk about how hybrid cloud, multi-cloud even helps with that and things that we're dealing with today. But more importantly, it's going to help us get through and prepare us for returning in-office workforce and hopefully even help us manage those lost budget items and those projects that have now been pushed off or pushed back because a lot of us have unfortunately spent either the rest of our FY20 budget or even I've talked to a lot of customers that have already spent the first half of FY21 budget, and they're trying to find ways to make some of these projects self-funding so that they can implement something to help the business move forward even through the pandemic. And we're going to talk about all those things. Now, firstly, I just wanted to mention, we at Hewlett Packard Enterprise take what we do very seriously, not just around IT, but what we can do. And when we can uh, send something back and share something back, we do that. We are accelerating a cure for the COVID-19 pandemic by reprovisioning two of the world's largest supercomputers. One of them is a mere 30 petaflops. The other one is approaching an exaflop, which is over 1,000 times, actually over 1,000,000 times bigger than a petaflop. But nonetheless, you got petaflop, teraflop, and exaflop. And the bottom line is that we're doing that on our dime, right? Not only reprovisioning the hardware, but giving the software to the folks that need it and the manpower to manage these things and to map those 44 enzymes so that we can figure out how to solve the problem. In the meantime, we're also finding new ways to manage infrastructure better because a lot has changed since mid-March, right? Back in March, we were all looking at these same common issues, right? We were looking for how to use new sources of data, how to migrate to the cloud, and how to define what our cloud strategy might be. We're looking for better customer experiences, faster service delivery for everything, and leveraging new technologies to move these things forward, while at the same time improving uptime and availability and security. Now, with the advent of what's happened in the last 6 months, everybody is first and foremost, right off the top, we were looking for better remote system access, better remote system management and capabilities so that we could in fact send all of our sysadmins and operators home, yet still be able to manage the business and manage the IT. While at the same time, now we're looking for new IT budget opportunities to fund the DR and app dev environments used for COVID-19. So I think that we had some polling questions here. Let me just see. The first question was
Yes,
if we could fire that.
I'll pull it up.
And I'll read it off. And if all the questions pop up, folks, I just would like you to answer the first one right now. Did you have to reprovision or cannibalize any DR or app dev environments to stand up VDI or the VMs needed to send your workers home? Right? And that's really just a yes, no. A yes, no question. So think about that one right now. Did you have to reprovision or cannibalize any of your disaster recovery or app dev environments in order to stand up sufficient VDI or VM resources in order to send your workers at home? So I'll give you another couple seconds to answer that one. And then do we get to see those results by chance and we can talk about those, or you can tell me what they were?
So right now it looks like for that one, we have, I believe, one person that voted and they said no.
Okay, that's great. That's great news. And okay, so we can take away the polls for now. And so the bottom line is what I normally get is I get about 25 to 28% of the respondents at these. And by the way, I've already done three of these sessions this week. I don't want to tell you how many I've done in the last couple months, but by and far, 25 to 28, and I'm not going to say to 30% because that's not true. It's really almost exactly 25 to 28% of the people that I meet with have had to unfortunately cannibalize some of those DR and app dev resources. And then what we're finding and what we were expecting was that we would get those back at the end of the COVID pandemic, right? when everybody returned back to the office, we'd be able to reprovision those back to the DR facilities or the disaster recovery application standby resources that we needed. But unfortunately, what we're finding out now is that 35 to 50% of the former in-office workers are never coming back. And that's unfortunate, right? Now, the unfortunate piece is that it's requiring us to rewire around that, right? We're having to retool our applications and our application assets and our access and we're having to redefine security parameters to control now, especially executives' home office network environments, because our executives are absolutely under attack right now. As you'll see in just a second, and you've probably heard this on the news, Joe's not making this stuff up. Cybercrime is up 78% in the last 6 months, 78%. And where it's being focused is typically on our executives. Why? Because the bad people or the bad actors get the biggest bang for their buck, focused on spear phishing attacks and other malware attacks focused on our executives, because the executives typically have access to the most lucrative data within your companies or within our companies. Now, at the same time, we're also readying for a safe return to the workplace. So when our folks do come back, we need to make sure that we can ensure them and our customers. So as our customers are coming into our offices, or we're wanting to welcome them into our office, we need to make sure that they are safe environments, that we're doing everything we can to track the safety, security, and health of those people that are coming into our office, and we're ensuring that they're following social distancing guidelines and all the best practices using PPE, yada, yada, yada. And I'll talk to you about how we can do that and how that can run on a private cloud environment that we can stand up for nearly free, or we can define it to be, in the right circumstances, a self-funding project. And those are the best kind, especially for those people that may have unfortunately had to reprovision and or have spent their IT budget buying new resources and buying new laptops, desktops, and or new systems in order to stand up additional VMs or VDI resources. So we're going to talk about those things. I've already kind of talked about what we did to help. There's a lot of things that Hewlett Packard Enterprise is doing. We've made over 15 acquisitions in the last 3.5 years, and a lot of them are focused right here in the cloud, hybrid cloud, and multi-cloud space, particularly Cloud Cruiser, Plexi, CTP, Cray supercomputing. People don't realize that we bought Silicon Graphics about 2 years ago. We bought SimpliVity about 3.5, maybe 4 years ago now. But Cloud Cruiser was a specific targeted acquisition, as was Niera, to help us identify and have access visibility to multiple cloud or multi-cloud resource groups and third-party cloud service provider resources, workloads, and assets, and the cost basis for each of those resources, so that we can present those to you now via a single dashboard and allow you to see your multiple cloud resources, how much you have available, where it's available, and what the cost basis is for each of those, whether it's on a per VM or per server or per gigabyte basis, whatever it is that you've done. And then we can put those into similar metrics and present those to you in a singular dashboard that helps you make more intelligent business decisions. Now, we're doing all this because HPE is keenly focused on becoming the world's #1 edge to cloud, everything as a service company. And we're doing it, and we're doing it successfully. You've probably seen announcements and hopefully news from, we call him Uncle Tony, but Antonio Neri, our CEO, has been very vocal about what we're doing to enable HPE, or Hewlett Packard Enterprise, to deliver everything as a service. And it really starts with HPE GreenLake Private Cloud Services. And it's because everything is data-driven these days. Data has gravity, which means that it costs something to move it. It takes time to move it, and it's not something that you can take lightly. Applications have we're going to call it relationships. And if you haven't done the application relationship mapping and understand which applications have to come up first and which ones are dependent on which other applications, then you can't effectively automate anything as relates to automated DR, disaster recovery. And right now, that's more important than ever. So these are things that we're partnering in order to deliver these solutions. And, we can help you with these things, right? All right, now, let's get back to what's important right now, right? Right now, we're looking at reducing workplace costs. We're engaging and enabling our employees more deeply and more effectively in something that matters to them. And I'll get to that in just a second. Also, the employee's health and safety is of utmost importance. And if you're like us, through the pandemic, as we sent people home, we knew that they were going to have some extra time on their hands as we're going to call it the business balanced itself out. And we all figured out what the new normal was going to be through this pandemic and going forward. Now that we know that this is going to be with us for a little while, if not a year, year and a half, maybe even 2 years. And the business is never going to come back to the old normal. So in order to get people more, I say, in touch with the technology itself, we encouraged all employees to work on additional technical certifications. Now, that's a double-edged sword, and I'm hoping that a lot of you did the same thing, and I expect that you did. But what we find is that as our employees obtain more highly lucrative and valued certifications, what happens? They get a big red target on their backs from all the recruiters and all of our competitors now wanting to hire them away from us. So if we're not doing things to retain that talent, to make them welcome here, to keep them engaged, and to let them know that when and if they do need to come back to an office, it's going to be a safe place, and it's going to be a place that they want to be. Right. And so these are things that we're working on. At the same time, we're keenly focused on a more holistic approach to security. And that's simply because, as I said, cyber threats are up 78%, and it takes on average 146 days to even identify or notice that someone is actually in your data. And since data is the new currency, they're not just toying with it. They're not just accumulating it. They're not just copying and replicating it. While they're in there, they're getting everything that they can out of that. And then when they're ready to hold you hostage or hold the data hostage, they then don't just encrypt everything. No, 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 no. That would be too easy. They edit and your backup data. They'll edit one or two or three times, and then they delete it. So we've had customers that have had all of their backups deleted and then their live data encrypted, and then they get the email. Of course, they notice that there's something wrong as soon as they lose access. Now, if you're testing your backups regularly, you might notice it. And there are other tools that we can offer you and talk to you about that helps you identify when somebody that's never accessed a certain database, like say the payroll database, even though they may be authorized to do so, if they've never accessed it before, then suddenly they're accessing it for the first time, bells, whistles, and notifications should be going off. And we do that, right? We help you do that. And by the way, we also have ways to ensure that even if the bad actors do delete your backups or even change your backup data, because we offer the ability to track changes over time, even 10 or even 20 copies of edited data going back, we can always go back and restore from the last known good, whenever that is, even if that was a week ago or 2 weeks ago or just 2 hours ago, right? So we can always do that. And we're doing that, and we're ensuring that our servers, first and foremost, are not, we're going to call it hackable, because we start at the silicon with a silicon root of trust that's embedded in the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Integrated Lights Out Management Processor. The ILO 5 that's built into the Gen 10 servers from us, that's been out now for a couple of years, is well known and documented in the industry. We've received awards, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Cyber Catalyst designation from Marsh, the Cyber Security Insurance Underwriters Analyst Organization, because we start with that silicon root of trust with a zero trust fabric, ensuring that the systems themselves cannot be hacked. We ensure that nobody can implement or install fake firmware on these systems. So we're identifying that, we're protecting it, we detect it, and we respond to it. If we detect that someone has attempted to hack the firmware, and by the way, we're checking this on a cycle every 5 seconds, right? Firmware no longer only gets read at boot time. With UEFI BIOS these days, your BIOS is live on all the time. So if anybody makes a change to most parameters within your UEFI BIOS, it goes into effect immediately, which is why we're checking these things every 5 seconds. And this isn't new from us, right? Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and actually formerly Compaq, introduced something called AHS and automatic server recovery all the way back in 1995 or 96 timeframe. And automatic server recovery is constantly checking the hardware to the software, ensuring that the OS is responding. Because what was going on back in 96 as we were preparing for FY2K, we used to experience a lot of blue screens of death. You may remember those. And so we had to put in some controls at the hardware basis to ensure that we were detecting those things. And so now we've added on to that with the ILO 5 and the Silicon Root of Trust. Now, as I mentioned, it's been recognized with a Cyber Catalyst designation. We are the only x86 server in the world that has received this Cyber Catalyst designation that our systems are unhackable. Now, that's not just the ProLiant Gen 10, it's also the Apollo systems, the Synergy systems, the Edgeline EL8000 systems, and also our Aruba ClearPass policy enforcement firewall has also been recognized with the same Cyber Catalyst designation because of the technology that was built into Introspect and is now built into Aruba Central and built into ClearPass through the policy enforcement firewall. That's the technology that I mentioned that's checking to ensure that even if somebody is authorized to access some data, if they've never accessed it before and they're accessing it for the first time and they're hitting it, we will recognize that again in 5 seconds or less and cut them off. We'll stop that temporarily while someone in the security group then reauthorizes that access, and we'll notify you with alerts, even with an email or with a phone call, depending on how you've set that up. Now, this Cyber Catalyst designation comes from Marsh. Marsh is the global leader in insurance brokering and underwriting for innovative risk management solutions. And I've mentioned and I've highlighted just some of the cybersecurity insurance underwriters here. Now, what this means for you as a customer is that if you're using our ProLiant Gen 10 systems and or Aruba ClearPass, Aruba Central, then you may be eligible for a 10 to 15% discount on your cybersecurity or your data security insurance policy. Now, we've been recognized by the FBI. They've commended on us on those security capabilities and our security focus. Infusion Points have recognized that we're 2 generations ahead of our competitors. Now, that's generations, not 2 years. And 2 generations of technology in the Intel or industry standard server space is 5 to 7 years, right? We're also working with the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST 853 controls, and we're also including the CNSA Suite B heuristics are built in with a mutable public key and a hash private key to block and recognize if someone is trying to do anything with our firmware. Now, this is important because we recognize that cloud isn't a destination, cloud is an experience. And what I mean by that is as all of us are trying to, whether we're targeting going to the cloud or implementing a cloud-first strategy or a 100% cloud strategy, these things become very, very relevant. So if we could, can we fire that next, or we can fire the polling questions again, and I'll ask you to weigh in on question number 2. And question number 2 is, do you have a cloud-first strategy or maybe even a 100% cloud strategy? So if we could, can we fire that, or can we not fire that because I'm in control?
Nope, I got it.
There we go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And by the way, can we scroll down so that they can respond to questions 2 and questions 3 at the same time?
Yes, they
because
all
they
pull
are
up.
related. Yeah, so if you could respond to questions 2 and questions 3. Question 2, once again, is do you have a cloud-first strategy or maybe a 100% cloud strategy? It's a multiple choice, right? And then if no, why not? And number 3, there are multiple choices now. If you don't have a cloud-first or 100% cloud strategy, then is it because you haven't decided which public cloud service provider to use? Or is it B, option number 2, don't trust the security of the, quote, the cloud? Or C, you don't trust the economic savings reports or promises? Or D, you've already been burned by a public cloud sticker shock, meaning that they promised you one price and then it grew over time to the point that A, you're no longer getting any savings whatsoever by going to the cloud.
So Hannah and Joe, you have to answer all 5 questions to submit your response.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that now then. Please go ahead and answer all 5, submit the answers, and let's just go ahead and I'll step you through what the other questions are as well while we're doing that. So the other, there's only a couple other questions, and one is, how much more would you think private cloud would cost versus traditional IT? And then lastly, would you trust a private cloud that delivers the security of traditional IT with public cloud-like cost savings? So if you could just quickly answer those questions, submit those answers, and then we can talk to them and all speak to those answers as we go through the rest of the presentation. And then also Hannah and team, if you guys could keep me honest and just give me a like a 10-minute or a 5-minute, 2-minute warning kind of thing.
Yeah, no problem.
Q&A. Yeah.
We've so far had 6 out of 15, 7 now have
Yes.
voted. So
people are weighing in.
Yes.
Right. Inquiring minds want to know what you're thinking. How are you running the business? Let's talk about it. That's right. It's Talk Back Live with Joe. All right. All right, we'll give you just another couple seconds here. And by the way, folks, there are no wrong answers here, as you can well imagine by the direction of the questions that I'm asking here. You'll recognize that I frequently get a good mix, but there's reasons for every one of these answers and every one of the questions, obviously. And these typically are things that we're all interested in. Hopefully, by you answering some of these and agreeing to spend time with us this morning, these things are typically top of mind for everybody in IT right now. Okay, I'm assuming that by now we've probably gotten all the answers we're going to get.
Yeah, so the first one, we had 3 out of 9 answer yes, and 6 out of 9 answer no.
All right. And then of the no's, what were the reasons why?
We have
question number 3.
Yes, we have 4 out of 9 who answered haven't decided which public cloud service provider.
Okay.
2 out of 9 answered don't trust the security of the cloud, and 1 person answered don't trust the economic savings reports.
Okay.
And 2 people answered have already been burned by public cloud sticker shock.
I love it. All right, cool. You folks are awesome. All right, well, let's talk about that. And by the way, that's you're right in line with what I typically see. So this is really good. I'm loving it. Facts over time, the numbers are always the same, and the reason is that you should be leery of the security of the cloud, right? We've all heard the really bad stories, right? And unfortunately, the fact remains that nearly 50% of all hacks start inside the company, right? And you're all aware of probably the Capital One hack, where unfortunately the bad actor knew that they were getting cut because the Capital One decided that they were moving to Amazon Cloud. These are well-known facts. You can read them out on the internet. Joe's not making this stuff up, I promise. But unfortunately, the bad actor in this particular case came from Capital One, left themselves a back door, and then got a job at Amazon so that when Capital One started their contract and went live in the cloud, they then leveraged that back door from Amazon to copy data from within Capital One, copied more than 2 drives worth of data. They were in there for well more than more than 60 days, which is important because it takes on average about 30 days to break 128-bit encryption. And so every 30 days, you can figure on average, the hacker has had time to break at least 1 drive's worth of encryption. And in 60 days, they've got 2 complete drives worth of encrypted data that they then posted out on the dark web. And these are not new stories. These are not one-offs. This unfortunately happens all too often these days. And by the way, as you go to any cloud service provider, they're going to promise the moon, and they do. They're really good at it, right? There's great marketing out there. There's great, and by the way, the first couple pieces of candy or the first couple uploads are always free, right? Or maybe it's the first 30 to 45 days of service is free, just like your cell phone, just like your DirecTV NFL package, and then in month 2 or 3 or 4, they really start gigging you. Or they start eating into you and the cha-ching factor starts weighing in, whether it's adding in more data, adding in more sysadmin access, or increasing your quality of service, or increasing the security parameters within your contract. All of those things will increase the price of that service. And that's not the way we do private cloud. And so I'm going to talk to you now about why it is that everybody, and by the way, if you don't have a cloud first strategy, I really do encourage you to have one. Now, having a cloud first strategy doesn't mean that you're looking to go 100% public cloud. It just means that you're intending to try to deliver IT as a cloud service to the business. And pretty much every CEO is putting pressure on every CIO these days. And this started a couple of years ago and saying, look, why aren't we looking? If we're not looking at the cloud, why not? Why are we holding back? And you can say, well, because we don't trust the security. We don't trust the cost savings promises. And those are all good reasons. But there's also great reasons to be able to deliver still IT as a cloud service to the business, even if that's via a private cloud that's managed within your own four walls of your data center with your own security. So HPE came up with a way to do that with Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We call it GreenLake. And our GreenLake private cloud allows us to deliver traditional IT as a private cloud to the business with visibility to multiple public cloud service providers' resources, all in a single dashboard. We call that GreenLake because the modern cloud experience does offer speed and agility, and it does deliver speed and agility. It delivers a lot of other things, though, unfortunately, there are side effects of those things. But the on-premise reality is that data does have gravity. Security, performance, and compliance are of extreme importance, and these are not things that you should be willing to give up, nor should you have to give them up. So we're using something that we call cross-stack analytics and artificial intelligence via something that we call InfoSight. It's a technology that we got from Nimble via the Nimble acquisition a couple of years ago. You know, we didn't buy Nimble just so that we could have another HCI solution. We already had three, by the way, right? So, I mean, it's a joke internally, but the bottom line is that we really needed InfoSight. And as it turns out, Nimble is an extremely good storage solution and has offered extremely high availability, 6 nines availability just to start out with. And more importantly, because of InfoSight, we've taken InfoSight now across our entire application or hardware infrastructure stack and integrated into every one of our storage solutions, offering everyone now 6 nines availability or better. But more importantly, InfoSight enables us to open and close all level 1 and level 2 trouble tickets automatically. I'm sorry, 86% of all level 1 and level 2 trouble tickets are open and closed automatically with integration into ServiceNow and other orchestration integrations into other service management and trouble ticketing management applications in order for us to open and close these things automatically, and then more importantly, be able to, we're going to call it, recognize these things, block them off, firewall them off so that nobody else accidentally implements that update. And it's not just an HPE update. Sometimes it might be a VMware update. It might be an Oracle update. It might be a Microsoft update that affects your infrastructure, the availability of your application stack. We recognize those things. We blacklist it. We ensure that nobody else that has a similar implementation across our thousands and thousands of customers, that they don't accidentally implement that and take their application offline either. Meanwhile, we fix it once and for all. And once it's fixed, then we send out a notification to everyone, hey, we fixed this. You can now implement this update in this environment. And that update goes out to everybody with similar implementations. Now, these are things that can all be delivered as a service via HPE GreenLake. Now, GreenLake is a service. It's not a lease. And more importantly, it gets you over the hump of having to buy or invest 3 to 5 years worth of infrastructure every time you buy infrastructure. You're not buying 3 to 5 years of infrastructure, then waiting 2.5 years before you use some of it. And in some cases, some of our customers never get to that because of COVID. Unfortunately, a lot of our business metrics are down, which means that for those customers that bought 3 years worth of infrastructure last year, they unfortunately may never use all that infrastructure. And some of you out there dialed in today may be in that boat. Well, I'm telling you that there's a better way of doing it, and it's GreenLake. It's a GreenLake private cloud environment that scales as your business scales. It scales up. We always have an additional 10% of infrastructure on your premise at all times so that you can scale up or burst up within your data center. And then as your business scales down, your infrastructure scales down, meaning that we turn off those servers or we turn off that storage, but we also turn off the software, and you save the software licensing. And let's face it, the VM tax and VMware licenses, just for one example, VMware licenses can sometimes cost more than the server itself, right? And I speak from experience. And it's not just because one of my family members works for VMware, but nonetheless, it's true. And so HPE GreenLake across the board delivers a private and hybrid cloud solution that enables IT to be delivered as a service. Now we're running, whether it's containerized VMs or bare metal, and doing it all automatically, managing it all efficiently, giving you controls and the security that you need or that's dictated by your business units. So you're in control of security, you're in control of the definition of what infrastructure you want to use. So you still get to use the exact same infrastructure you've always used. More importantly, because we're delivering this as a service and because we can deliver it in less than 60 days, and at the risk of sounding like a used car salesman here, we are giving 90-day terms to nearly every customer right now during COVID, which means that because we can stand up this private cloud service within 60 days, which we call GreenLake, that gives you 30 days to run our GreenLake private cloud service in parallel with your traditional IT application stack. And then at the end of that 30 days, we'll buy back some of that older infrastructure from you, give you capital or cash for those resources, whatever's left in the value that HPE Financial Services can squeeze out of that, right? Give you then the cash to fund months 4, 5, and 6 potentially, which then makes, because we have now hopefully optimally designed this, we have consolidated your infrastructure correctly and effectively, and we're organizing this and managing this for you in a better way than you can do it hopefully yourself. And we're promising this to you. We're put it all in writing. And after that 6 months, we're running basically at the same cost as you would have been running before, which then effectively makes this a self-funding project. We have plenty of customer examples where we've delivered exactly this for many of our customers, and we've proven it, time after time after time. And this is why the message from Antonio Neri is ringing so well with Wall Street, and this is why our stock is going up while everybody else is going down. This is why our GreenLake services have grown over 450% year over year, and while our private cloud is growing, everybody else's public cloud utilization is actually dropping. And as a fact, 85% of all enterprise businesses running things in the public cloud are now pulling things out of the public cloud for the exact same reasons that you folks just responded to, because either they got hit with the sticker shock, or they're not getting the security, or they're not getting the performance out of the cloud that they were promised, and out of the public cloud, that is. Now, when we talk about public cloud service providers, Pegasus and HPE have partnered together because Pegasus can actually deliver you private cloud services in one of their own colo facilities, one of their own facilities. So Pegasus can partner with HPE and deliver you GreenLake and GreenLake extended private and colo service provided resources or cloud resources that can all then be visible and or connected to by HPE GreenLake. So for instance, I can stand up a VMware Cloud Federation cloud within GreenLake, and I can extend that into a cloud volume that might be co-located in a Pegasus facility, right? And you can manage all that from GreenLake. I can alternatively have visibility via VMware vCenter, right? Or System Center from Microsoft to have visibility to both resources within the HPE GreenLake private cloud and the Pegasus cloud resources and manage those as one. So you have all kinds of access, availability, and options here. But more importantly, if you happen to have resources out in the Amazon cloud or in Google Cloud or in the Azure Microsoft cloud, or maybe you've implemented hybrid cloud from Azure via Azure Stack locally, or from Google with Google Anthos locally. By the way, I mentioned these two because HPE can run both Azure Stack and Google Anthos on top of HPE GreenLake in a private cloud environment within your facility. And we can run it on our infrastructure, and we can manage it for you, and we can give you visibility to all of those. Now, we can also give you visibility to the Amazon public cloud resources that you may have and the Amazon outposts that you may have running locally. Now, the difference between Google Anthos, Azure Stack, and Amazon Outpost is that Google Anthos and Azure Stack allow you to run those private cloud resources on their own. You don't have to have a public Azure cloud instance. You don't have to have a Google public cloud resource or instance running to get the benefits of Google Anthos. Unfortunately, with Amazon, if you're running Amazon Outpost or you want to run Amazon Outpost, you also have to have a public regional cloud allocation within one of Amazon's regional cloud facilities. Now, Amazon offers you the ability to either lease that Amazon Outpost infrastructure from them or buy it from them. But here's the warning, folks. You cannot turn off the regional public cloud resources from Amazon and still run your Amazon Outpost. If you attempt to turn off the regional public cloud resources from Amazon, guess what? That outpost turns into an outhouse and you no longer have access to it and you don't want to get stuck in it. I know. It was a nice analogy there, but you get the feeling. It kind of stinks. Nonetheless, we have something that we call HP Ezmeral. We just announced back in July our cloud software stack. It's HP Ezmeral and allows you to run open container platforms as well as multiple virtualization environments with managed cost controls across multiple cloud platforms, and including an Ezmeral data fabric, even network as a service if you so choose, using machine learning and ML ops to optimize that environment, using AI via InfoSight and other analytics tools, also available in getting information from both OneView that you may know of and know about, tying into InfoSight now with tight integration, as well as the Spiffy and Spire integration that we got from one of our recent security acquisitions. And all of these things can be automated with HPE OneView, HPE InfoSight, and a few other open cloud orchestration platforms, not the least of which is Morpheus Data, that can also allow us to automate other third-party infrastructure that you may want to include in an HP GreenLake private cloud contract. So we realize it's not just an all HPE solution out there. It's not an all HP world as much as I'd like it to be, right? We realize that in some cases you may need to run that EMC. You may need to run IBM. You may need to run Lenovo, Dell, Cisco. And guess what? We can add that infrastructure into a new HPE GreenLake contract and place that infrastructure within your environment and run it on top of GreenLake or run it in GreenLake and manage that for you as well, all as a service from HPE. Now, we also, as I mentioned, we give you visibility to your multiple cloud resources. So we're managing not just hybrid cloud or multiple hybrid clouds, but managing multiple public clouds and private clouds, giving you the best of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud management all under one console. We call that GreenLake Central. And it offers you multi-tenant portal access and multi-tenant portal utilization directly to your business units, whatever visibility you want to give them. But here's the biggest one, the biggest announcement that we made just a couple months ago is the addition now of the ability to have continuous compliance checks that happen every 10 seconds. And these things are, we are literally checking every 10 seconds to ensure that you're in compliance. And what that means is that we recognize there's lots of different compliance organizations out there, right? For best practices, best framework, whether it's HIPAA compliance or SOC compliance or the Cloud Security Alliance or FCA, you name it. I've just mentioned a few of them here. We are working with every single one of them. Every single one of those compliance controls are built into the framework that HPE GreenLake's compliance operations or compliance dashboard assists you with. And we're ensuring that you're in compliance with all those things in all of your cloud environments. So this is a beautiful thing. So we're not just managing private cloud, but we're also managing those colos. So we can also place your storage locally in a colo service provider across the street from all of the major public cloud service providers. And this is really important because data ingress is free. It's kind of like those first couple pieces of candy on the playground, right? Those first couple pieces are free. It's the next few that'll cost you a lot of money, as I mentioned earlier. So data egress is free. Data ingress is free. Uploading the data to the cloud, free. Downloading the data or data egress, not so free. So if you've implemented DR in the cloud, what happens? Well, if you actually have a disaster recovery, you actually need to restore something from a backup that's stored in the cloud. That's data egress, and those fees are exorbitant, and that's where the gotcha really occurs. That doesn't happen then if you want to move that data to a cloud volume that's co-located across the street from one of those public cloud service providers. We can do that for you, and we can partner with Pegasus to do that, right? So we can deliver that to you as a we're going to call it a multi-cloud environment in a colo service provider or one of Pegasus Solutions facilities to manage that for you and make it local. So you still get the benefit of turning up and turning down the compute as a service from your public cloud service provider, but the storage is managed locally with higher security and better control of access and better control of the definition of the infrastructure itself. So better flexibility of what that infrastructure is actually running on. And we can run these things on just about anything, folks, as you're seeing here. And this is just a small spattering of the automation and orchestration platforms that we have available to. We've tied into a whole bunch of infrastructure automation partners, not the least of which is Turbonomic, that is, VMware Cloud, whether you're using Puppet, Ansible, Chef, OpenStack automation, or Morpheus, or Mesosphere, or Terraform, you name it. It has automated integration into HPE's GreenLake and into HPE's OneView and InfoSight so that we can manage these things. And then the composable cloud ecosystem is even bigger. We've got all kinds of examples out here where we can show you the automation that's available. Now, I mentioned the support experience and the automation and the AI that's built in via InfoSight with over 1,200 terabytes of information now collected in that AI or InfoSight database, and the blacklisting that we did, the tight integration we have between OneView and InfoSight, giving you access now not just to Gen 10 or Gen 8, Gen 9, but also Gen 8, reaching back 7 years of server technology. So for those people that still have 5 to 7 year old technology out there, and I realize there's a lot of us, and that's fine, we can now integrate those and give you insight into what's going on there in tight integration for those AI analytics and suggestions on how to optimize that environment. Now, let's make it real for today. What are we doing to help you prepare to bring your customers and your employees back to your offices? Well, we're working with the Open America campaign. We're working with the CDC. I'm actually personally on the COVID-19 task force within HPE to help us track and automate how we're doing social distancing using proper PPE or protective equipment, doing automated temperature checks, tracking sanitation, even business travel for our executives, because again, our executives are higher risk. Right, so we have to do not just social distance tracking, but also social contact tracking and contact tracing. And we're doing that using multi-factor identification, not just facial recognition, but also connectivity to mobile data and tracking that person via a dual factor or multi-factor authentication. Now, the contact tracking and contact tracing, the difference there is contact tracking, we're tracking to see where somebody is. We're in your environment and whether they're adhering to social distancing. We're then tracing them back over time. If someone comes down with the virus, we can trace who they were in contact with and automatically contact those people via email notifications or however you choose to do that. And I'll show you how we're in compliance with the FDA 5100K clearance approved and positive facial identification tied with positive phone identification so that nobody has to touch anything until they reach their desk and they touch their chair to pull it out and sit down, right? These things are powered by technologies from Cognition and OpenPath in concert with, we're going to call it a reference architecture from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. This is technology that's currently being implemented at DFW Airport, Dallas Love Field, across the Pentagon, many other federal and local government agencies and buildings across the country, because this is the best solution out there, folks. We have multiple reference architectures that leverage the technology. We can integrate it within the security systems that you typically already have. And yes, it's FDA 510K clearance adherent. So we are not only adhering to the best practices coming from our healthcare and science professionals out there, but we're also managing the personal information, personal identification of the people and keeping that private and providing real-time alerts for elevated body temperatures and sending out the messages to alert the staff so that the staff can decide how they're going to handle that conversation with those individuals, whether that's an employee or maybe a customer. Now, how are we also helping you solve the other problems? So I recognized early on that we have the need to better increase our availability to manage our facilities and our infrastructure remotely. Since our administrators were sent home, we need to give them better access to remotely manage your infrastructure again, remotely. Whether they're now sitting at the beach, well, there's been an exodus out of the Northeast, specifically out of New York. And let's face it, if you don't have to live in New York to work in New York, why not live in Atlanta? Why not live at the beach, right? Where you can get twice the square footage for half the price. And we can do that now with the ILO Advanced feature and functionality going back to Gen 8 servers. You can turn on the ILO Advanced license that's going to turn on the remote virtual KVM or a virtual keyboard video mouse that's built in to the ILO chip going back to the Gen 8 chip. We'll turn that on for free. If you go out to hp.com/info/ILO, click on the ILO Advanced license, we'll give you a free license that's good to January 1st, 2021. And give you free access to not just the virtual KVM and remote consoles, but also it turns on the advanced heuristics, the advanced security that's built in the Gen 10 servers. We'll turn that on for free as well, so that you get the benefits of that silicon root of trust and that increased security right now for free when it matters. So please take advantage of this, folks. It is for free. I'm also giving you some pointers to Esmeralda Software Portfolio White Paper. So several Doppler articles on how to implement hybrid and manage multi-cloud environments better. And I ask you to define your hybrid and multi-cloud environment and your DR strategy. Work with us at Pegasus at HPE. We can help you define those if you haven't already done so. And then also, we'd love to demonstrate these technologies, right? Give us a call. Call HP and Pegasus to demonstrate these solutions for you. So lastly, Hannah and team, can you read me off what were the stats on the last questions now?
So for number 4, how much more does private cloud cost versus traditional IT? We had 1 guess 10%,
Okay.
4 guess 20%,
Beautiful.
1 guess 35%, and 3 guess none of the above.
Well, you know what? It's great. So the none of the above wins. Because the fact of the matter is that we have time and time again delivered private cloud at the same public cloud economic savings promises of the public cloud providers. In fact, we have several different examples where we're delivering at lower costs than the Amazon public cloud. And we're delivering that via private cloud with the increased security. You define the security, you define the infrastructure, so you get the controls of private IT infrastructure, you get the security of private infrastructure, but you get the public cloud economics. So then what was the answer to number 5? Would you trust a private cloud that delivers the security of traditional IT with public cloud-like cost savings?
4 answered yes, 2 answered no, and 3 answered maybe.
Wow, you wouldn't trust a private cloud that could deliver the security of traditional IT with public cloud-like cost savings. Okay, so I want to set up a call with the 2 people that said no. I want to find out why. If we can unmute them now, I don't know if we have time. I think we have 6 minutes left. Can we unmute these folks, or can we take those offline?
Let me see.
And by the way, if nothing else, what I'd like to do is offer the ability to set up some calls where I could allow those 2 individuals to actually talk to some of our HPE GreenLake customers and have them tell you directly, what their experience has been, and has in fact HPE delivered on our promises of public cloud-like cost savings with the security controls and the agility of traditional IT.
Yeah, and Joe, we can help with that. We can coordinate any meetings coming
Beautiful.
up for sure.
Yeah, love to do those, folks. I mean, there's nothing better than a solution that actually lives up to the promises, and this is why Wall Street loves us right now, because GreenLake, it's growing because it actually works, folks. I'm not a used car salesman. I never have been, and I've actually never bought from one. Well, that's not entirely true. I have bought used cars, but typically from the actual car manufacturer. Nonetheless, this is technology that really works. We can prove it for you. We can show it to you. The proof is in the pudding. And I'd love the opportunity, whether it's over another coffee or virtual lunch or virtual dinner, or just to chat with one of our existing customers to show you that we actually are telling the truth here. So again, thank you. For the opportunity today, Steve and Hannah.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Joe. And we did have a couple of questions here.
Oh, beautiful.
If you want to take a look at these. So First one is you mentioned that your Green Lake private cloud can sometimes be a self-funding project. How does
Yes.
that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, and I try to explain that one throughout, but the bottom line is that because right now we can deliver this so quickly, we can deliver this in about 60 days, and no one ever has to pay, or almost anyone with good credit right now, we're giving 90-day terms, which means that you don't have to pay for anything till day 91. And typically, everybody has infrastructure that's still worth something, especially if you know you're writing down those assets on a 3 to 5 year schedule. They are typically worth something. There's some value there. Hewlett Packard Enterprise Financial Services has, in many cases, bought back that traditional IT, give you capital back for that helps fund months 4, 5, and 6. And then if we've done our job correctly, then we have redefined and consolidated and orchestrated and automated that environment such that it pays for itself in less than 6 months. So that from months 6 through 5, then it's basically becomes a self-funding project because of the extra cash that we've given you back to pay to get you to month 6. And so if we can give you enough capital back as cash, right, and sell that back as a service, that it works out every time or nearly every time. And we
Right.
can show you those numbers. We're glad to run you through, the write down schedules there. And actually, again, have you talk to a couple customers that have done exactly that with us. And by the way, there's plenty of videos out there on the HP YouTube channel you can pull up from customers like Travelport that have talked to how that worked for them successfully.
Okay, one more question here, Joe. And I know you covered some of this, but what kind of controls and visibility does HP GreenLake have into other third-party cloud resources?
Okay, good deal. Right. So through Cloud Cruiser, the integration that we acquired a couple years ago, we now integrated that. That was a separate application that stood on its own that gave you access to multiple clouds, multiple public clouds, not the least of which was Amazon, Google, and of course, Microsoft Azure. And by doing so, we've now integrated that into GreenLake Central, giving you access to not just the cost per resource in your resource groups may be reported as either a cost per VM or a cost per server or a cost per core. We can break it down in a lot of different ways, or maybe it's a cost per terabyte or a cost per gigabyte, or maybe it's a cost per frame of storage. So the different service providers may report that differently, but we can help bring that together in a common monetary it's a comparison that
Right.
helps you manage that and optimize that. And then we also have other tools like we have Morpheus data options out there that can be put on top of GreenLake then to further optimize and automate the ability to then move that infrastructure. And by the way, we then use other tools like maybe Veeam to partner with and to lay on top of these other third-party cloud service providers
Mhm.
resources to then automate the mobility of those workloads and resources from cloud to cloud to cloud. So once you've optimized those based on the information that we're giving you from GreenLake Central, you
Mhm.
can then automate the optimization of those resources permanently.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's truly it truly is amazing. But as again, the truth's in the pudding. Let us show it to you. Once you see these tools, you go, oh my goodness, where have they been, and how come I didn't know about them already? Right?
Right. Well, Joe, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the call with us today. Really appreciate everything you shared with us. And I know, just speaking to the participants out there on the call, we will make sure that any questions you have, or if you'd like to set up a meeting to dive a little deeper into any of this, we'll set that up for you. Um,
Yeah,
anyway,
and let me just add one more thing.
yeah,
By the way,
sure.
I'd like to
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you, Steve, for hosting us today. But one more thing, so yeah, I want to ask everybody: stay safe, stay healthy, but do not stay thirsty. Life is too short to be thirsty.
That's right. And speaking of thirsty, thank you, Joe. We have everybody who is attending these webinars, as we mentioned earlier, you will get a subscription at the end of the month, beginning at the end of the month for coffee. So
Ooh, awesome,
more good stuff to drink coming at you.
awesome.
Anyway, again, thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for coming on the call. Really appreciate it. We'll be in touch. And if you'd like to dive deeper, we'll make sure we schedule those meetings for you.
Love to
Thanks
do that.
again.
Take care now. Okay, bye bye.
Bye-bye.